back with another episode of RACE22 podcast. On the line, I've got Roger Johnson on one line, and I've got Ron Barfield from Dillon Motor Speedway on the other line. First off, Roger, welcome to the show tonight, man.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here again. It's always good rapping with you guys. Let's get into Ron, see what he's got to say. I'm interested to say it's trying times right here. We got to hear from some guys that have been around a while.
Absolutely, for sure. And, like I said, we got Ron Barfield from Dillon Motor Speedway on the other line. He's, another one of these promoters that's, wanting to get a race in. Ron, thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I just got through watching the South Carolina governor and the president talk on television, and I'm probably like a lot of racetrack owners at the moment, to where I'm trying to pick apart every sentence that the president says and how he says it and what they mean and everything else. I'm probably like all the other racetrack owners in America at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, I think that's what everybody's doing. I didn't get to watch that tonight. What'd you learn from the president tonight?
Oh, hey, you know what? He's going to try to start opening up some of the country. I think some of the states that don't have, problems like other states and stuff like that, to start doing a guideline type deal, to where you got where there has to be 14 days of the spike, where they can move to the next phase and stuff like that. So I really don't know what they're really saying. I mean, I've listened to it. It looks like it's going to be a while before we can. It looks like it could be a while before we could get to racing, but maybe everything shape up and get to where we can race. I mean, I'm one of them racetrack owners and promoters that, I just want to race. I mean, you know what? I want my racetrack open to where I can go enjoy all my racers and my fans and everybody like that. I mean, all of them are my friends, and that's where I want to be anyway. So, I probably want to race as bad as the racers want to race right now.
Right. I think at this point we're all kind of in that boat, man. I mean, we're, this little shutdown's kind of left us all, I think probably appreciating racing a lot more than we appreciated it before.
Oh, definitely. And you know what? I'll tell you what. Around my area, and I'm sure I'm not I'm sure I'm no different than other areas. There's a lot of people that's scared right now. I mean, you got a lot of people that have been watching the TVs and it sounds like gloom and doom and everything. But you have a lot of people that are scared right now. But South Carolina, I mean, they got most of the people staying home from work. But I tell you what, I went today. And I was getting some stuff for a house that I've been working on. I'm trying to get ready to sell on a piece of real estate. And I'm telling you what, I went to Lowe's, and I ain't never seen that many people in the Lowe's parking lot in all my life. They were out spending money. I mean, there must be some stimulus checks must have got to some people, because I'm telling you what, there was more cars in the parking lot than I've ever seen at my local Lowe's. And you know what? I didn't even go in. I pulled up in the parking lot. I've been trying to stay to myself a little bit and everything, but I pulled up in that parking lot and I said, you know what, I ain't going in that. It's just too many people. So, I know people are dying for a racetrack to open and they're wanting to go see racing, and just like us. I mean, we want to put the races on for them, but it's just trying times. And I mean, I've been snowed out, I've been hurricaned out, but I haven't. I mean, this is the first time I've ever got virused out.
Yeah, it's definitely different for sure. I know the other day, I guess you were scheduled for another race this weekend, but you pushed it back to May the 2nd. I know you spoke about the timeline there a little bit. I mean, do you feel like that May 2nd is something that you're going to be able to make happen, or do you think that's just overly optimistic?
Well, I've been very fortunate that this year that I've got my New Year's Bash race in. I've got my first mass race I got put in on May the 7th weekend, or March the 7th weekend. And I was a week from running my March 21st race whenever all this shut down. And basically, I basically wrote my schedule on my internet, on the website. I basically wrote my schedule up through about July. And one of the reasons why I didn't write anything past July is because in my area here, Myrtle Beach Speedway is kind of up in the air about what's going on with the sale and stuff like that. And I've been trying to make it to where I didn't race on the same weekends as the racetracks around here, whether it's Florence Motor Speedway or whether it's Myrtle Beach Speedway. I try to run on opposite weekends. And, the reason why I didn't write my races past July is because a lot of the dates that I was going to run in August and September were dates that Myrtle Beach is actually running. And with all the news that was going on with it, I just kind of waited to write those dates because I didn't want to have to change them later on. So, so I put a schedule out till July. And, my first race was the New Year's Bash and then the March 7th race. And then I had a 21st race and I didn't get to do it. So the next race on the schedule was April the 18th. That one's not going to happen. I had to call it off. So I just went straight to my schedule for what the May 2nd race is. So, again, I'm hoping I want to get back racing. Me sitting here listening to the governors and everything for the state of South Carolina and everything and what their plan is, I don't think I'm going to be able to run May the 2nd. So, but that's just me looking at it here. If I don't get to do the second race, my next one on the schedule is May the 23rd. That one might be a possibility. So, I was just looking at it as, hopefully something to get turned loose. Maybe they will, one of the things that they've done in South Carolina is they stopped all the boat landings and all the lakes and everything around here. You can't go and use any of the state boat landings. Well, today during the press conference, the governor released those restrictions. So I was hoping that they would release some restrictions. So it's been kind of going off the schedule. Going from, if I can't do this one, I'll get it ready for the next one, vice versa. And, I'm hoping that things might change, might get a little bit better. It's a big hope, but, like I was telling you today, we could be June before we could be the summertime before we get going. You got to see how things happen.
But Langley and I have been discussing a lot of different things, much I'm sure like you and most of the people you're involved with. What happens if we have a soft open here where you can't have fans, or at least a small conglomeration of fans? What is your angle? What are you going to try to do? We know we can't make the race or make the whole purse. Everybody wants to get back to the track. Everybody's trying to find good content. What is your plan?
Well, I mean, I've kind of looked at it. I mean, number one, like I was telling you a while ago, I think a lot of people are scared right now. I think there's a lot of fans, just like, I'm married. Most of us are married. A lot of us have kids. And, whenever you go to look at that racetrack, when I was saying that a lot of people are scared right now, let's say a race goes on this coming weekend. How many wives are going to be out there that's going to say, honey, don't go to that racetrack. I don't want you to go out there and get our kids sick. Come back and get something and get our kids sick. So I think a lot of people are going to be very, very conservative whenever they do decide to go to a race. And like you were talking about soft openings and stuff like that. It's hard to do it without fans. Okay. But I told Langley today, I said, I've had races where I run my racetrack to where I've had 100 people in the grandstands, okay? And whenever you take 100 people in the grandstands, back in the days, back in the 80s and the 90s, these promoters, they'd open the gates up and they'd have 1,500 people in the grandstands, okay? Well, all of us know that we're sitting here, and don't have the fans that we used to have to come to these events. And Langley asked me today, he said, hey, are you going to try to do it without fans? And I told him, I said, I had some races last year where I had 200 people in the grandstands. I said, well, everybody's scared to death right now. There might not be but 100 people in the grandstands at an average ticket of $10 a piece. I mean, heck, we're talking about $1,000, okay? We got $1 million racetracks that we've built. We've got purses that would be $20,000 a night. We got expenses that are employee expenses of $4,000 a night. So in the scheme of things, that $1,000 from the grandstands, you know what? It's like a small bucket, if you know what I mean, compared to what it costs each race to run these races. So, if I could race right now, I look at everything as a full season. I look at it. I don't look at my racetrack as, okay, we're going to run 15 races. If I don't come out in the green this race, then I hope that it comes out in the green the next race. But our times that we are right now, as bad as people want to race, even if I lost money, even if I lost a good bit of money, I would still try to run that race just to get the races in for the 2020 season. Anytime rain comes or something like that, you kind of know what's going on. We're going into this knowing, hey, it's probably not going to be the best night anyway. But the biggest thing is if I could run, let's say if I could run May the 2nd, I might not be able to run again until June the 1st, but if I could get that race in, then it would satisfy my local racers and my local cars and that come and race with me all the time. And I look at it as a whole year deal, not necessarily just one race at a time. So, yeah, soft openings, would I do it? Yeah, I would do it because I want to get those amount of races that are there. And I'm not so concerned about we'll worry about the checkbook at the end of the night, if you know what I mean. Let's try to get a race in to keep our racers and to keep our racers racing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that several racetracks are going to take that approach there. One thing that I was interested, and as you were talking, you kind of led into this, but the racers, you mentioned the race fans are kind of hesitant maybe to come to the racetrack, but it doesn't seem like the racers are hesitant at all. Do you think there will be a lot of cars, or do you think it'll be your normal crowd, or do you think it'll be a little bit smaller, or what do you anticipate if you were to get a race in? What do you anticipate that would look like?
Well, let's say this May the 2nd. Let's say if things happen and you could run it. Okay, I think there's enough people and I think there's enough race cars that they're ready to race that you have an awesome car count. Okay, I hate to say this. I'm not a political guy at all. Okay, I'm not a political person. Okay, and I understand that this virus thing, this is some bad stuff. I really believe it's some bad stuff. But I also believe that this is a lot of political going on in this deal. Okay, I really think that there's a lot of political going. South Carolina has a Republican governor. North Carolina and Virginia have a Democratic governor. Okay, which one do I think would open first? Do I think South Carolina would open first, or would North Carolina or Virginia open first? Okay, so let's say if a North Carolina racetracks are closed, and South Carolina says, hey, we're going to race. We're going to allow you to race. Well, I think you have gobs of race cars, okay? Right. But double-edged sword. If they want you to social distance and they want them 6 feet apart, if you got race cars at Dillon Motor Speedway and it holds 85 haulers in the infield, you know what we're going to do? We're going to try to put 85 haulers in the infield. And you know what, to be honest with you, we're probably not doing what we're really supposed to be doing anyway, Right. So I think we'd have the race car drivers. You have tons of race car drivers. I think the fans. I think people would be a little bit skittish, but I think that's going to go on here for a little while. I don't think it's going to be something, And I'll tell you something else. I'll tell you another thing from track owners that you have to worry about. I think. Okay, Dillon Motor Speedway. I built Dillon Motor Speedway because I love racing, okay? It was my hobby. This is all I've ever done. This is the way my family raced. We raced as a family. Whenever I quit driving, now we just run a racetrack as a family, okay? We're still doing the same thing. We're still racing. We're just on the other side of the fence. So, my racetrack, I do it. My dad's 71 years old, okay? My mom's 72 years old. And you know what? We all do it because we love to do it. And that's what we want to do. So Dillon Motor Speedway, if Dillon Motor Speedway does not does not race, at least it's not taking food off my table, if you know what I mean. Okay, because I do it. I do it because I love to do it. It's not my primary business. My primary business is real estate. So the thing about it is if I don't race, if I don't race or if I have a bad night or a bad couple nights, then it's not gonna put me out of business. Okay. A lot of racetracks, they got banknotes. A lot of people's got leases at these racetracks. You know what? I'm telling you what. Those are the racetracks that's going to be tough to keep going here if we lose this year, if you know what I mean, or a bunch of this year. I think we're going to lose some racetracks if we're not careful.
One other thing that I've really been thinking about is, what are you going to do differently from a safety perspective? I mean, we've always tried to keep the racers safe in a different way, with roll bars and rules and things that could happen. But now this is something promoters haven't really experienced at all. Different kind of safety.
Yeah, I was sitting there, me and my wife were sitting there talking about it. We need to go in there and mark off like every other seat how many feet apart that is. I think that the fans would come in there and do it. They would social distance. But yeah, my question, I'll give you an example, and I think a lot of racers I think a lot of racetrack owners are like this too. Some racetrack owners are going to try it no matter what. Okay, they'll bark the system, and they're going to try to race no matter what until somebody calls them up and says, "Hey, you can't race." And then what they're going to do is they're going to say, "Oh, it's unconstitutional. You can't do this. You can't do that." I'm not that way. I'm probably somebody that pays my taxes. I pay my fair share of taxes, and I'm kind of like I don't go out to break the rules. You know what I mean? Like I'm not somebody that wants to go to jail. I kind of adhere to what the rules are. I kind of listen to what my governor or our governor say about our state, and if he says, "Hey, if you racing, if you got more than 10 people or whatever, could I go there and start fighting that and saying, hey, it's unconstitutional. This is private property. This is not public property. Yeah. But at the end of the day, where is it really going to get you? Where is it really going to get you? You might bark the system a little bit, but I've always been one to kind of follow the rules or kind of follow the law. And with me saying that, and this is a big variable, and I can't get an answer to it whatsoever. But whenever these states go in here and they put a state of emergency for that state, okay, I think it completely changes things. If a state goes under a state of emergency, like for this deal here, it is a virus, state of emergency for the COVID-19 virus. Okay, we all know about it. Okay, we know that there's chances for people to get sick. Okay, whenever there's a state of emergency, I don't know, when it comes to these racetracks, you could be opening yourself up to a bunch of liability. And I don't know the answer to that. Okay, I've tried to find.
I don't think anybody does yet.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? The only way you're going to find out is somebody that goes in there. I went to my insurance companies and I asked my insurance companies, hey, if somebody goes in the racetrack and they get sick and they sue me, are you going to protect me? Okay. Well, my insurance provider says, yeah, we're gonna protect you. Okay. But I also know how insurance also works. Is whenever you go to the racetrack and you have a hurricane that comes through at Dillon Motor Speedway, and the wind blows the windows out and it wrecks my building, like I only got probably a tenth of what it cost me to fix the building. You know what I mean? And the reason why it was is because it was a national disaster area. It was a disaster for or whatever you call it. Like,
right.
When a hurricane comes in, it's a natural disaster. So all the insurance sounds great until something goes wrong. And then that's whenever you find out, like we were just saying, what is the real story on this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know.
To kind of follow up on Roger's question there about the safety aspects of this. I know you kind of went off into the insurance thing, and that's an interesting aspect as well. To follow up on that, what kind of thoughts? I mean, I know from my perspective, trying to put off a few races at Franklin County and do the mini stock tour. I've thought about this. I've thought about what are we going to do? What's going to have to change? What's going to be I hate to use this term because I don't like it when I hear it from the media, but what is going to be the new normal for us to do temporarily? You know what I mean? So have you put any thought into mask or hand sanitizer or wipes or anything of to that degree?
I have. I called my safety director that is a guy named Bill Flynn. I called him last night and I talked to him. I said, hey, let me tell you what I'm trying to do. I said, I might try to run on May the 2nd. And anyway, we were sitting there talking about it, and we were talking about masks. Do we make it where it's a requirement? Do we make it where we mark the seats that you can't sit in to control the 6-foot deal? Do we shut the grandstands completely off for a little while? Let everybody go into the infield. Right. We talked about, hand sanitizers there. Stuff like that. If I was going to issue, let's say, a mask, you know what? I'd probably have a hard time getting them at the moment. That right. Many masks for people to come in. And I'll tell you something else. My mom and dad, like I was saying a while ago, they're 71 and 72 years old. My mom works the ticket office. My mom is a very personable person. Okay, she's got to talk to everybody that comes to that window. And you know what? This is probably the times right now where you don't need to sit there and have those long-winded conversations at the ticket office right. and handling money and them being 72 years old. I mean, there's got to be masks on. There's got to be gloves when you're handling the money. So yeah, I think we would have to look at it now and to look going forward, especially this summer, on what we got to do to make it where it's safe. And then again, my only question is if somebody gets sick at the racetrack, where does that put the racetrack at in that thing? How much right. responsibility is there whenever there's a state of emergency?
For sure. You mentioned their age and your parents being involved, which is awesome that they're involved with you every day there. But you mentioned their age and their vulnerability. I guess does that give you some hesitation about moving forward with a race?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes whenever you look at that and you look at the age of my parents, and like I say, my mom there, I could tell my mom all day long, Mom, do not, don't have a long-winded conversations, okay? Collect the money, wave to them, and go on. Let them go ahead into the racetrack. But I'm telling you, that's not my mom's character. My mom's right. character is she's going to talk to everybody. She delivers the mail, and I mean she's working today with a mask on and gloves on, every day delivering the mail. She's a sub. But anyway, so yeah, it does. But what you do is you actually say, hey. You ask yourself, hey, is it really worth chancing right now? Okay, do I go in there if it's really a chance that if I knew that my parents would get the COVID-19 from this, you know what? I would just close the racetrack down until all this stuff's gone. You know what I'm saying? But you can't really do that because you don't know how long this stuff's going to be here.
Right.
It might be a deal to where you go in there and I change, I get somebody that's get some more help in there to my mom that's actually younger people. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, you weigh it. But I will tell you, there's some things that are way more important than racing a racetrack on Saturday night. And one of them's got to do with family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
would agree 100%. I've actually, when this first started, I stopped having, testing at Franklin County. I didn't want to, bring that home, to my wife, to her mother. I didn't want to take it to my mother. I didn't want to do any of that. And I've stayed away from her mother, my mother. just and honestly, we tested a little bit last weekend, but I used every precaution possible there, and I think that's. I think that's what you got to do to keep the people around you safe, and that's why for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you listening to what you said that you and Bill talked about. For me, in order to do a race, the only way I could do it is if every thing had been thought out, if every
That's right.
Every obstacle, and honestly, I think that's one of the problems. I don't think that the governor or any of his people or any of the people in the county, I don't think that they think that all these businesses are going to take it as seriously as I think most of us are. I think everybody who's in business wants to stay in business, and we're willing to do whatever it takes, I believe, to be able to do that and do it safely and keep everybody that comes there, not just our family, safe.
That's right. I mean, you know what? Everybody in the grandstands, you know what? I mean, I consider them, even though, I don't know them all, but you know what? Most of them I notice in the grandstands that come every week. You know what? And the last thing in the world I'd want to do is to put a race on and get somebody sick. And that's why you say, hey, do you just wait until some of this is gone? But I got a great core of racers, okay? And my great core of racers, they're wanting to race. They're wanting to race, and that's why I was saying, hey, if I have to do it without fans or can't open the grandstands, if I have to do that, do I want to do that every week? No, I don't. But if it makes it to where it's safe and my racers could race, I would do it. But the thing about it is at some given point, you got to say, hey, if somebody's going to get sick and stuff like that, maybe we need to stay home a little while. Right. I mean, it's, everything goes through your heads. I mean, I was very fortunate. We got 2 races in early in the year. I started early. If I'd have known all this stuff was going, I'd have raced all the way through February and more in March, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? But we didn't know this was going on. So, I generally, what I do is I normally run January, race in March, and then what I normally do when I get to August, I normally take the hot month off, Right. And I normally take the end of July and August off, and I'll tell you, it's so hot at the racetrack. It's so hot at the racetrack. You don't get a lot of fans. You don't get a lot of cars. Again, my dad's down there in the infield. No wind blows at all down there. And if everybody that knows my dad is a go-getter. He will work till he can't work no more. I mean, he loves to work. And I've always wondered in August and places like that, hey, is it too hot to race? I don't want somebody to have a heat stroke down there. You know what I mean? And so I've always kind of take off the end of July and August. Well, if we don't get the race in April and then May, I'm probably gonna have to pick up those August races to be able to get races in for the year. If you know what I mean?
Right.
That leads into my question. Is there a go no go time for you? I mean, you kind of go to your beat of your own drum and do your own thing and buck the trends a little from the timing, which works out really good. What is there a go no go time for you where you're like, we're just not even gonna go anymore this year?
I don't think so. I think whenever my October race, when I run October, I probably when I run in October, when it comes November and December, I really don't hardly even go to the racetrack. You know what I'm saying? I don't even really get. And I'll tell you, I started when I got into this. I wanted to race every week, and I opened Dillon Motor Speedway, and I said I'm gonna race every week. Okay. And what happened is after about 3 years or 4 years after I built Dillon, I had my little girl, okay? 2 years later, I had my little boy, okay? Well, that's whenever I decided, you know what, Ron? I'm going to race one week, and then the next week, I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to spend with my kids. Go race one week. So that's what created my schedule to race every other week, because I would spend time with my kids one week, and then I would race the next week. And I'll be honest with you, when I go with my kids, I go hard with my kids, okay? And whenever I go to race, I go hard at the racetrack, so, so my go or no-go, my go or no-go time, my no-go time is is the weeks that I'm off. And, somebody said, hey, if Myrtle Beach closes, if Myrtle Beach is sold, aren't you going to go race every week? No, 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 no. I don't want to race every week. I want to do exactly what I'm doing, and I'll spend that no-go time where I can enjoy my family, and at the end of the year where I can do it. And then that way, whenever New Year's Day comes up, I have to rest in December because January is crazy. So, but I love to do it. You know what? I mean, I would be lying if I told you that I didn't love it. I love it. I want to be around the racers. I want to be around my friends. Everybody in this industry, if they love race cars, you know what? I'm a friend with them because we're enjoying the same things, together, and they're enjoying the same things that I like. You know what I mean?
Right. How much, how much do you think this is going to affect? I know you mentioned earlier, the aspects of having a lease, having a mortgage, and all that on other racetracks. But how much of an effect do you think being NASCAR sanctioned is going to have on some of these other racetracks? Whereas you'll be able to make the decision on your own, I'm able to make the decision on my own. The Turners at Ace are able to make the decision on their own. Several tracks are in that position, but the majority of the tracks in our area are not in that position. They're in a position where they have to listen to NASCAR. How much do you think that's going to affect those other people?
I think it's going to be tough on a lot of the racetracks. I'm not sure how from the time I built the racetrack, I never went NASCAR sanctioned. Okay.
Right.
So to be honest with you, I don't know what the costs actually are. Okay, I've never really researched it. I've heard people talking about it. I know that a lot of it has to do with their insurance. That they have to run so many races to get the valuable insurance. I probably wind up paying a little bit more insurance on my racetrack, because I don't run as many races, so, I probably don't get the extended plan like if you run so many. So I don't really know the cost on it and stuff like that, but I will tell you something. For the points deal, and the stuff with NASCAR, you know what? This is really going to throw a wrench in that whole situation. I mean, I've thought about NASCAR before. I've thought about, making Dillon Motor Speedway NASCAR. And I'm gonna tell you, I was a NASCAR man whenever I was racing, and I was driving for Elliott and all. I was a NASCAR man, but from the time I built Dillon, I just didn't see where I could afford to pay all that money extra. Whenever I opened the gate, I was probably going to get them to come race anyway. Like when it comes to the local guys. I think leases. There's a bunch of racetracks where people have leases.
Right.
That somebody else owns the racetrack, and they have leases. I mean, Hickory Motor Speedway. Greenville Pickens, I know that those facilities are actually owned by that people that don't run the racetrack, so, and I don't know what their leases are and stuff like that, but I'll tell you something, if we're down for 6 months, this is our time that we need to be racing here. March, April, May, June, this is the time that we need to be going right now. And I'm going to tell you, it's got to be tough if you're not racing because it's not bringing any money in, but you gotta pay those leases, and I hope that the guys that own those racetracks are kind of giving a break to the guys, knowing that there's not any money coming in, So,
right.
My situation is where, I try to keep my overhead down. I try not to keep a whole lot of employees, so whenever things like this happen at the time, I can kind of weather it because. If you go to my racetrack tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the gates are locked, But if I have a race next week, I'll be out there from Wednesday on, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Getting ready to go, So, I'm not a racetrack that has, Myrtle Beach. They got people full-time in the places down there. Other racetracks got full-time people there. They probably raise more money on sponsorship and stuff like that. But, have the overhead that those guys have got, if you know what I mean.
Right. No, I totally understand that, and I think you talking about the leases. I think that definitely adds another wrinkle to everything. I mean, I think specifically two of them you talked about Hickory. That's a from what I gather, that's a pretty hefty lease, and I don't know how that'll work out. We'll probably try to talk to Kevin here in the next week or so and kind of pick his brain about where he's at.
And I'm sure that I'm sure, like, let's say Kevin up there, he does a great job up there. He gets a lot of sponsors around that area.
Right.
He sells a lot of billboards to cover that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like whenever you sell those sponsorships, those people that have paid for those billboards, they want to race. They want to see they need people in the grandstand. So, like my place, I mean, very few billboards, but I don't work as hard when it comes to that side of it, when it comes to the sponsorship and stuff like that. I've just never been one of those type guys, but, the biggest thing is trying to get the races and kind of keeping the overhead down. And they always say you got to be there for a rainy day. And I mean, like right now, it's a rainy day right now. You know what I mean? We've got to get by this. And, I think this social distancing thing, they've already got our kids, not in school and everything else. And my opinion is if we're going to quarantine, let's quarantine and let's get this stuff over where we can get back to doing what we love to do,
Yeah, I agree. I wish they would have from the start just said, hey, we're going to spend the next 21 days locked up, and we don't want you going anywhere, and we'll just move on from that. I think Roger's got an interesting question about sponsorship there that he wants to ask you about.
Yeah, I just was wondering what will happen, do you think, with these people that, and I'm one of them, right? I sponsor some racetracks and Cars Tour this year and different things. What do you think will happen? The contracts really are going to have a hard time being fulfilled. What will happen financially there?
Well, I mean, you know what? I mean, I think when it comes to sponsorship, when it comes to stuff like that, I mean,
I can't blame either party. That's where I think as a racer, we might have to take it on the chin.
Yeah, I think it's one of them things. I think the people that are sponsoring these racetracks, when it comes to sponsoring the racetracks, they're doing it because they love to do it also. And the people that love to do it, they'll probably say, hey, you know what, just kind of make it up to me. Whenever you get racing, make it up to me. But then also you got corporate sponsorships, as you got billboards that saying, hey, you know what, I paid for 20 race dates and you only run 10 race dates. I want a reimbursement back for the races that you've done. I just think it's going to be all over the board. I think, and again, that's never been my strong suit. I've always when I opened my racetrack and I had when I was doing sponsorship to start with, I got to the point to where I didn't take sponsorship from guys that own race cars. You know what I mean by that?
Right.
Langley, do you know what I mean by that?
I know exactly what you mean by
for
that.
Sure.
If you got this sponsor at the racetrack and he's spending plenty of money at the racetrack and everything, and he also races a race car and he's also got a race car on pit road, sometimes you're gonna get that phone call and say, hey, if that guy hits me again, you better black flag him. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I would just rather not have that situation, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like if you own a race car, and you want to sponsor a billboard, the problem is I probably don't want to sell you a billboard, if you know what I mean, because I don't want to have the problems down the road, But then again, those are the people that are supporting those racetracks. You know what I'm saying? You need them.
Right.
I guess I kind of I do some of them, but whenever I do it, I say, hey, this has nothing to do with what goes on at the racetrack. You know what I mean, or any decision that's going on.
Right. I mean, eventually they're going to want a favor out of it, and you just have to tell them in advance. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I have people all the time, even with RACE22, people will advertise, and then later on they'll want some sort of negative story about something rode, and I'm just like, nah, we're not going to do that. So,
That's right.
It costs you money, but I think reputation wise, in the long run for racetracks, every aspect, I think it's a whole lot better off. So, I mean,
Yeah. So, and you getting to your question there, I think it like a long time ago, whenever these racetracks were there, like in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, heck, you could open the racetracks and it would fill the grandstands. You know what I'm saying? Like today, today it's tough. And everybody asks me about a promoter. Everybody talks about promoters. Okay, I always say this: you know how you can be a good promoter. Okay, how you can be a good promoter is give them free tires, free gas, free practice. Okay, they will love you forever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Racers will love you forever. You'll be the best. You'll be the best promoter in the world. But what I look at when I talk about promoters, I look at how many people is a promoter putting in the grandstands.
100%.
Okay, you know what I mean? Like to the racers, you can be a great promoter. A lot of people can be a great promoter. Give them free tires, free gas, free practice, everything else. But I look at racetracks with promoters of these people that are just piling these people into these racetracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where your promoters are. And I'll be honest with you. I'm not the guy that goes out there and can fill my grandstands. I have a hard time filling grandstands. Like even getting a lot of people at my racetrack, okay?
Right.
But, it ain't from not trying. Social media, I'm just not that promoter type guy that just, that I can pack the grandstands. I mean, you look at things like Bowman Gray. Man, oh man.
Right.
Have you ever seen so many people in your life to watch cars go around a football field?
It's definitely a lot of them for sure, but they have so many advantages over the other racetracks that we will never have.
Right.
The location
Yep.
and all those things. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, a promoter, it comes down to being able to sell tickets, and that's whether you increase it from 50 to 100, or if you increase it from 50 to 5,000. I mean, whatever it is, I think that's what makes a good promoter. Now, in the eyes of the
And
racer,
Langley, let me ask you this here.
right.
I mean, you've been doing it. You do your races. I mean, you know what? How in the world do we get the 80s and the 90s? How do we get those numbers back to this racetrack? What do we do? What do we do to get those people? Because I just don't know it. I've tried everything under the sun.
That's
You got any ideas?
that's a really deep question right there that I don't think we have enough time in the
That's a whole nother show, ain't it?
next 6 months to figure out. But that's I mean, it definitely is one of the biggest challenges that a racetrack faces. The racers all want to know why the purses haven't went up, and that's because the grandstands they've shrunk, and it's not of the promoter's fault, the current one anyways, usually, and it's not it's not the racer's fault, but it's just part of what's happened. I mean, it's part of where we're at, with society and people on their phones, and other things are more important. But I do think there's great ways to sell tickets, but I don't know that you can ever get back that.
Hey, do
that
y'all
heyday.
do any of this iRacing?
No. Roger might. I don't know.
Roger, you do any of this iRacing?
My son is involved a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? That stuff kind of scares me to death.
We've had that conversation. Me and Roger have.
So yeah, Langley and I have both had that. Virtually,
You know what I mean?
Our cars repaired.
Yeah, well, you watch that stuff you watch it on the fan. I'm not a big iRacing guy, okay, but heck, I sit there and watch it, and you can't hardly tell the difference in it, okay? Like watching the screen or whatever, just looking at it from a glancing at it. But you know what? Every time them guys crash that race car, they can hit that reset button on that thing. They give them a whole new car. You know how many hours they have to work in the shop to hit that reset button?
Oh no, you're exactly right. I told Roger, the moment this iRacing thing started, once the real racing stopped, I told him, I said, this is not good for short track racing, because those rich daddies that feed into this thing. I mean, why would they ever buy a real race car? I mean, they're ignorant if they do.
That's where I was going with this whole situation.
Yeah, I figured it was. I mean, it's definitely different for things.
Hey, Roger, have you had to buy a whole new race car for your kid yet?
No, he just hits Control Alt Delete or gets one of those spool ups or whatever. It's great.
Hey, in my opinion, those NASCAR drivers that are racing on Sunday, from Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson, they better put them games up. Is what they better do.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I mean, it definitely can hurt their future of making money for sure. So, no doubt
That's
about
right.
that.
But anyway, you got to have a little fun anyway.
Absolutely.
You got to have a little fun
for sure. Anything else been on your mind? Anything else you want to talk about tonight before we let you go?
Oh, you know what? Let's see here. I think we kind of covered it. I just want everything to get back like it was. I want to get back to racing. I want things to be safe. I hate that we're having to go through this transition time right here and everything, but we're all going to get through it. These racers are chomping at the bit, wanting to race, and I completely understand it. And like I was, with me going May the 2nd, you can't blame me for trying. I'm trying. I don't know whether I'll get it done. The possibilities of getting it done probably aren't going to happen, but at least I'm trying.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the exact same boat. I'm trying for May 23rd or 24th, and in Virginia, I think that may be pushing it because we definitely, I'm with you. You have a Republican governor, and that's going to matter a lot in this thing. I actually told somebody yesterday that I thought that South Carolina would be the first to allow racing. I thought Tennessee would be second, North Carolina would be third, and Virginia would be last. So, but that doesn't matter.
I don't know whether you know this or not, but I was watching the president's thing that he done, that he went to the states. And here tonight, I was looking at that. And, the peak for each state is different. I think North Carolina's peak is supposed to be like April the 17th. Okay. South Carolina's peak is not until May the 1st. Okay. Right. I don't know where Virginia's is at.
Yeah,
okay. I don't know where Virginia's is at, their peak. But from what it looks like, that from the peak of the state, you wait 14 days, and then you can go to what they call a stage 1, and it allows so many things to open up. And then when that happens, then you got to wait 14 more days, then it can go to another stage. Okay. Is just listening to the president's plan. And then after that 14 days, then you can go to stage 3, which is basically opened up, okay? Right. The problem that I see with South Carolina is we haven't even hit a peak yet. It's not even supposed to hit the peak until May 1. So the thing about it is we can't even start the 14-day clock until the peak happens, and I don't know where Virginia's at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're at the end of April. We're right in the same boat with you, right in within a few days. So I mean, it's an interesting perspective. That's kind of what I've told everybody. I figured it would be 4 weeks. We'd be able to race 4 weeks after we hit the peak. So I mean, your idea is about right, and that's
kind of what they talked about on the thing. And I'll tell you something else too. I was looking at was Hickory. You remember whenever Hickory opened up and they run and they practiced and they scuffed tires and all that deal?
Yep.
Could you imagine getting shut down like Kevin got shut down?
Oh,
at 6:30 at night after the guys had done been there all day, scuffed tires. I mean, they scuffed new tires.
Yep.
Could you imagine, man? That would be a horror.
Oh, it's a terrible situation. That is a terrible situation in itself, but when he comes back, he's in an even worse position because now everybody gets in for free. He's sat here all this time. Yes, he's got their money in his hand, but he can't do anything with that money because most of it's going to go into the purse, or probably all of it.
That's right.
It's a terrible position to come back in because now, the next race, he's lost money the last race. He's going to lose money this race. It's just
I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for him that he had to make that decision. That he had to make that decision. I mean, you know what? It didn't happen. It didn't happen after practice. It happened after qualifying when tires were scuffed. You know what I mean? I hate it for Kevin like that. He works very, very hard.
Yeah, he does.
I don't think he wanted it like that either. I mean, he was up to the minute watching what was going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He thought for sure that that executive order went into place on Monday, and then when they finally found out that it went in that moment, they had to shut her down and move on, and that's got to
Yeah,
be a
that was
tough
a
position for
horror.
sure.
I'm telling you, that would be that's the worst. That's the worst scenario that could happen.
No
Feel
doubt
sorry
about
for
it.
Kevin on that.
Well, before we let you go, let everybody know. Since you're planning on trying to get a race in May the 2nd, let everybody know where they can keep up with you on that.
You know what? www.dillonmotorspeedway.com. And like I say, I try to run at least twice a month. The schedule's on the internet, and I'll try to run twice a month here. And looking forward to wherever we can race. I do the Facebook page, Dillon Motor Speedway. Also, I try to do as much as I can on it, but yeah, love to have people come out and watch a race. Or if you got a race car, love you to come run with me. Give Ron Barfield a try. I'll tell you what. I'd love to see some new cars.
You are definitely a racer and fan favorite of promoters, track managers, whatever you want to call them. So anybody that goes down to Dillon Motor Speedway will definitely not be disappointed. And if you race May 2nd, I can go ahead and tell you I'll be there. So hopefully,
I hear you, son. How about you,
in.
Roger? I'm gonna get you down here.
Yeah, I might have to come out of retirement.
You know what? If I pull a May 2nd race off, you got to come because it's gonna be historic if I can pull it off.
I agree.
But you know what? We probably don't have to worry about that.
Well, if you do pull it off, you just gain 2 people. So there you go.
There you go. Hey, thank you guys. Okay, appreciate you having me on. Okay.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, Ron.
Appreciate you.
Bye bye.
Well, Roger, what'd you make of that conversation? First off, thanks to Ron for joining us. I knew that he'd be a wealth of insight, just given the position that he's in, the fact that he's in South Carolina. What'd you take out of all that?
I took it. He's as confused as the rest of us, right? Like we all want to get back to the racetrack. None of us know exactly what to do,
right?
And we're just gonna kind of trudge our way through it. I don't know what else we can do. I think it's gonna change minute by minute, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is. I mean, you heard him talk about. I actually didn't get to see the Trump daily briefing. I read up a little bit while we were on the phone there. I was trying to catch up. Trying to have a little bit of information. I was trying to listen to him and trying to catch up on that. I guess the phases and all that. I haven't done enough studying to speak. Intelligently about that, but that's kind of how we talked about on the first couple of episodes that we had. That's kind of what we thought was going to happen anyway. So, and the timeline's about right where we thought it was going to be.
The only thing that looking back on our talk there, the only thing I'm really interested that we should have talked about is there's a lot of people getting really restless right now.
Oh, for sure.
And I think we're a little bit in North Carolina and Virginia ahead of where they are in South Carolina. So we've been locked down a little bit longer, especially Virginia. They went kind of early. You and I talked, and they closed it up. And I think that it's going to change the way people think. That extra week or 2 weeks, it's going to build. They want to go back to the racetrack more and more and more.
Oh, for sure. And the problem with that is, early this morning, and I'm sure you didn't expect to actually get a message from me before noon. But,
no, that was awesome.
Early this morning, I messaged you and sent you that story about, from racingnews.co, where they were talking about how, racetracks shouldn't open the grandstands at all in 2020, and you heard from Ron there, talking about the possibility of doing just that. I think I've mentioned that. I think I think every promoter, I asked one yesterday. I'm not going to mention them by name. I asked one yesterday, and they were like, "Hey, I could probably do that once or twice, but I probably couldn't do that very many times." And I think that's probably the case for most people. So. I mean, that's an interesting aspect for sure. I mean, you read that story? What'd you make of what they had to say there?
They're gonna go. Like he's just ready. He doesn't care what anybody says, which I think he's got the right to carry on his family's legacy, right? And they draw a good crowd and they do great things, and I understand, but I also think there's some other components of this that we got to try to keep everybody safe. I'm not saying that we don't come back. Listen, I'm a multi-business owner. I don't want to close down any longer than we needed to either. But I also think safety's got to be some of the key, and I don't want to be a sheep either, right? Like I don't want to absorb all the news that we hear and
Right.
this and
Sure.
that, but I think we got to err on the side of caution here.
Yeah. I'm torn,
I
man.
know you feel different.
Well, no,
You feel like we should go.
I feel exactly like you do, except at some point or another, I said it on Facebook today. At some point or another, we're just going to have to make things happen on our own because they're not going to. And this is the problem for me. And this was exactly what. And you were actually talking about the story with Bill Bader, not the dirt story that I was mentioning, but that's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We actually talked about both of those, so I kind of confused you there. But the Bill Bader with Summit Motorsports Park in Norwalk, Ohio, planning on opening up his facility. Said he's going to do it no matter what. Really challenged the governor to stop him, which I think that was a bad decision. But that's another story for
He'll
another
pay
day.
for that one.
But I do think that at some point or another the people that are trying to keep this thing alive are going to have to do something to actually keep it alive, because I don't think the president gives a crap about short track racing. He knows what NASCAR is, but he doesn't know what Dillon Motor Speedway is. He doesn't know anything about Wake County Speedway. He's probably never heard of Hickory. Doesn't know anything about South Boston. Doesn't care. Equally, the governors in these states have no reason to care. They don't go and play in their race car. They go play golf. It's two totally different things. That's the reason why golfing is allowed right now and racing is not. That ultimately is the reason. We can make all the scenarios of why that is and why it's not. That's the truth. That's why it is. I mean, people can come up with their own opinion, and that's fine. But
The only thing that scares me is I don't see a lot of new ideas being created because of the unknown, which is why I think we're stymied. The worst thing I worry about is that we lose 2 months out of from the businessman perspective. We lose 2 months out of our billing cycle, right, which gives us 80% of the total revenue that we would have made, maybe 90, right, depending. Now, how do we come back with no people in the stands and try to get longevity? That's what scares me.
Well, I mean, I think, the coming back with nobody in the stands is just a start.
No, I don't disagree, but I just don't know for how it works for year 2 from now.
Listen, none of us know how any of this works. That's the unfortunate part about it. I mean, like, we're all kind of lost. If and I think I said this in the last podcast we had. If you listen to the president, you get one story. You listen to the governors, you get another story. If you listen to the doctors, I mean, you might as well just go on and put a bullet in your head, because they don't want you to ever have a life ever again. I mean, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But the thing about it is we'll all figure out a way to come out of this. And I'm interested. You mentioned there a second ago, the creativity. What kind of creativity are you looking for? What aspect are you thinking that in?
I don't know. I think this could be a turning point for short track racing if it wants to live. In my opinion, I think short track racers are resilient and will figure out a way to make it work. But I think, as we know it from before, it will never be that same. I do not believe that for at least a while will you even get 500 people or 1,000. I think you're going to have to figure out ways to broaden your markets with online, maybe behind paywalls. You and I have discussed about that before.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to become a media company.
Right.
I think if you own a racetrack, you're going to have to become a big-time media company. Maybe start putting your stuff on YouTube. Maybe start trying to do other things for the racetracks. Look at some of these people like the McFarland guy that you like, and try to patent those things.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I wanted to know. I wasn't 100% sure where you were going with creativity. I think so. I think we're in a spot right now where you can kind of hit the reset button right now. With racetracks, short track racing, late model stock cars in particular, but it's everything, have needed a reset for a while. I mean, we've needed to sit down and say, hey, this isn't working. So it's an opportunity for a reset. It's an opportunity for racetracks to somewhat minimize their risk and help their racer at the same time. It's an opportunity that you can do a lot of things. I've advocated for this before. Combining some of these divisions. I mean, it's time. Ultimately the only way. One of the number one reasons why Bowman Gray gets such a good crowd. But what do you think the top 2 or 3 reasons they get such a big crowd is?
Like, I think they got a great location.
Sure.
But I also believe, because I feel it when I go there, it's a show.
Sure, it is.
It is a form of escapism. It's a show.
It's 100% entertainment. But I think one of the aspects of that makes them even more successful, if it was a show with 3 to 5 cars, it wouldn't draw very many people. The fact that that every division's going to have a pretty good car count. It ain't perfect. They don't have, 25 or 30 of every car now like they used to, but they still have some of the best car counts that you see in short track racing anywhere. And when you go there, you're going to see a lot of cars race, and you're probably going to see a lot of beating and banging, and you might see a little extracurricular activity. And that's ultimately what sells tickets. I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to piss off a whole lot of people when I say this. I love the car store, but from an entertainment standpoint, they got a long row to hoe in order to become entertaining enough for somebody to actually pay to really want to see them. And I hate to say that. Yes, they get a decent crowd now.
Are you talking about behind a paywall or something?
I think that even more so. But I mean, from a crowd standpoint, yes, they get decent crowds. They get more than your average weekly show. That says something for your weekly show, if that's the case. But from an aspect of selling, online, they're not entertaining enough. And that's what our problem with our NASCAR product is. The NASCAR Cup Series is not that entertaining. Sadly enough, their iRacing product is far more entertaining. Far more.
Because it's raw, right?
Yeah. And they're having fun, and that's what you have to have. People at Bowman Gray, Tim Brown, he's pretty serious about things, but everybody else is kind of looking to have fun. You know what I mean? And it's okay to have a little mix of that. The personalities and all the things that go into that's fine.
I mean, all the way down to the announcer. It's a good show.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all about entertainment, man. I mean, nobody would go to the circus if there wasn't, flying acrobats, and there wasn't, people riding on elephants and whatever the hell else they do there. I don't know. I ain't been to a circus since I was like 4 years old, so I'm not 100% sure what all they got going on there. But you know what I mean? People would not do that. I mean, people are out for entertainment, and their money can be spent in so many better ways than going to a racetrack. And I know that pisses people off to hear that, but it's the truth. We got to get back to having making this entertainment business entertaining.
What do you think about I don't know if you saw Jack's interview on I think they put it out on Facebook with
his Facebook
an
Live.
Adjusted schedule today and some different stuff. I think that maybe the video was yesterday. What did you take from that?
I took from that they want to keep going. That they're just like everybody else, man. They're desperate to get back to the racetrack. We all are. We're all in the same boat. But I tell you, I think that the interesting aspect, and I do know that our buddy Doc Love did a little house call with Jack McNelly tonight. I believe that'll come out on RACE22 maybe tomorrow or something. But he talked to him, and I think you'll hear some interesting things on there just from talking to Doc. I think I think that here's ultimately, and I was so proud of Ron. Not that I didn't think that he would be, but I don't know. I have a bad feeling about where some of these racetrack, promoters and general managers and series directors and all this stuff. I have a bad feeling about where they are mentally. But the fact that Ron, when the question came up, when you asked him about the safety, and I followed up with him on that about the mask and about all that stuff. Had he said, well, I hadn't really thought about that, I'd have thought, man, this guy is in trouble, because I'm telling you, I spend every moment that I'm not working on doing this show or spraying weeds at the track or blowing the track off or doing something else or working with somebody at, with RACE22 to try to put something up. I'm sitting here thinking and talking to my wife about all right, where do we get masks at? Where do we have enough hand sanitizer? What do you have? And then she brings out, she's got. I went into the bomb shelter and she had all kinds of things in there, and I didn't even know what the heck happened. Now I kind of have an idea where our money's going, but I'm telling you, man, people have to. If you're running a racetrack right now, and the first thought that comes to your mind isn't, man, what have I got to do to make sure that I'm able to race? If you're just thinking about racing and you're not thinking about what you're going to have to do to have a race, then you're an idiot.
Yeah, but I think people are in different positions, and I think we're going to see this transpire to more businesses than just racetracks. As far as some people can close their business down for 6 months and start it right back up and go at it again, right? But some people are going to be 100 or 80 or 150,000 down by then,
right?
And that's not okay, right? So I think it depends on the stress level. You're starting to see many people act differently, just even now.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. If you're stressed over reopening your business, and I say this for you, okay? I know you're not, but I say this for you. If you're stressed over reopening your business, and you're not thinking about, okay, what have I got to do differently? Then you're lost. You are lost. If some restaurant right now is not figuring out how he's going to configure his tables and his bar stools with way less than he has right now, then he is going out of business. Bottom line, he is going out of business.
Disagree.
Same thing for these racetracks. Same thing for everybody in every business. I mean, I think, hair salons, when they open back up, their appointments are going to have to be a little more spaced out to make sure people don't end up in the room together. It's just going to be part of it.
At least in the beginning, in the short term, right?
Sure. I don't think this is forever, but, we're not coming off of, last February when everything was normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do think this will change things forever, though. I really do. I think a lot of people...
Some things will change forever.
Yep, I really do. I really think... I applauded Ron saying, and I think people will be scared. You and I have talked off the show about... I just don't think people are going to flood back. And I applaud the promoters having an idea of trying to talk with their families and the groups around them and see which ways to go.
I think some of them out there, I'm telling you, I talk to different people every day. I text with them. I talk to some of them on the phone. Some of them message me on Facebook. I message them, whatever the case may be. And I'm telling you, some of them just don't get it. And so, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was talking to one yesterday, and I'm pretty sure I spun him completely out, and he had to go into the pits and, take a pit stop so he could figure out what the hell he was going to do next, because he had not thought of something that I had said to him. And, I mean, it just really kind of left him, I don't know. If their first response is, I don't know, they're in trouble. I just go ahead and tell you, they are in trouble, because you've had a lot of time to sit here and think about this. And if you haven't thought about that, and I get it, you talk about the stress level, man. People are thinking about their money. They're thinking about how much lease they're, having to pay. They're thinking about all these things. Am I going to get this PPP or whatever,
Right. Listen, is your wife going to keep her job? Is your kid going to start back to school? How do you teach your kid?
My
right?
mom going to get
coronavirus?
Is my mother-in-law going to get coronavirus? Is who?
It.
I'm telling you, I think about that every day. I actually was telling my wife earlier that I think I'm going to kill my sister. I'm not 100% sure. I probably shouldn't have said that on here, because when I do,
I wouldn't have.
When I do, it's going to be, because
now it's out there.
My sister's not taking it seriously, and she's around my mother, and that just pisses me off. And I feel that way, so when I say, I want to get things back open, I'm not saying that because I don't want to take things seriously, because I'm taking things 100% seriously. When I had practice this past weekend, I'm like a nerd, man. I'm wiping everything down. I got to wipe the pen down, wipe the clipboard down. I got to make sure that they don't, if that person had it, they don't give it to me, they don't give it to the next guy that signs it, or whatever the case may be. We're living in a different world, man.
I don't disagree. I think that's going to be challenges. You and I were talking earlier about everything takes twice as long. I've never had so little to do, but what I have to do seems like it takes me twice as long, just because somebody's not open or somebody's not running at this 100% production. You know what I mean? Just keep going and going.
Right. For sure, for sure. And I want to apologize to our listeners earlier. A couple different times, people were beeping in on the conversation here, because for some reason I even used the call waiting block that I use every time that we record this, and for some reason it did not work this time. So who knows why that is? Maybe when we're on, got multiple calls going on at one time, it doesn't work. I'm not really sure, but whatever, this is raw. We've listen, me and Roger have we spent about an hour tonight trying to figure out how to make everything work. First we couldn't get a microphone working with this, and then I couldn't hear him, he couldn't hear me. I mean, it was just going back and forth, and you'd think we'd have this down pat by now, but obviously we don't. And but we're trying to.
It keeps changing.
Well, we're trying to add. We want to add video, and we want to eventually, go start having this live. I'm actually, as much as I'm, taking this seriously, and I will take, many precautions. I'm thinking about riding down to Performance Center, and sitting down. I'm pretty sure we can
social distance.
Yeah, we can sit 6 foot apart, and just have the show there so we can have it live. Your internet's a whole lot better than it is up here in BFE, and that's ultimately what we want to do. I mean, we want to get back to having some live shows and doing some things. I mean, obviously, we'd like to keep this going once we get back racing. I mean, I think, Roger, really wants the show going. I really want the show going. It's entertaining. I actually, the last show we did, no, not the last show. I wouldn't listen to that. I hate that anybody had to listen to that one. But the show before that, where we had Charlie Hansen from Wake County on, I actually went back and listened to that show from start to finish, and that's the first one I've listened to in a year, I think. And it was really good, man. I really good information. Charlie brought so much to the table. I was really happy to get to talk to him. And man, tonight Ron delivered. I mean, every question, man, he was on point, I thought. And even the iRacing thing, when he started talking about it at the end, man, I've told you my fears. I've told you what I thought.
Right.
Private conversation. I haven't really said that, publicly, but him talking about it, I'm telling you, there's something there. There's something to that. I mean, if Rich Daddy doesn't have to, clip a race car, that's not good for me, and that's damn sure not good for you.
No, right. I mean, we've seen the game changing years and years. I don't think it matters. Rich dad, not rich dad. I
Listen, if they have a race car, they're all rich in some case.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think, there's nobody racing that doesn't have a decent amount of money in one way or the other. It's just that you can't pay for the tires every week if you don't go above and beyond.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. I agree. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother problem that I have a solution for.
I would like to see it feed, though. I think maybe this brings a group of young people that we may not have gotten, right? Like, that's where I'd like to see the big car stuff still stay relevant, but I'd like to see what we can bring in for young kids or different people that weren't into the sport, that maybe they can channel through the iRacing platforms, that we can try to get some more raw talent.
Yeah, and I think it does offer that, ability. I think that, it is another avenue for people to get started in. And if it's just that, that's great. I mean, that's, if it feeds in, and that's what it's done up until now. This whole shutdown and it going, live on Fox Sports 1 and NBC, that adds a whole different dynamic. I'll guarantee you that iRacing has never had this many people on their platform ever before. And a lot of them will drop off. I mean, the real racers, and I hate to use that term because I'm not calling somebody that's on there not a real racer, but I mean people who drive real race cars. So let me preface that so that I'm not, condemning them or, shorting them in any way. But, the people who drive real race cars, they're going to fall off of that because they're going to have too much to do in the shop and all that. But I would like to see some of those guys. I mean, there's several of those guys who compete in both the iRacing deal and the NASCAR Heat deal that they have that would make pretty good little race car drivers. I mean, if they're, if they run as good as they do on there, like TJ Majors and William Byron and all those guys that juniors basically brought through iRacing into real stock car racing has they've all done pretty good. So I mean,
I'd like to I like it from the perspective that if you're a 10 or I don't know, let's just say 8 to 14 or 15-year-old kid, you can dabble without going in 100K.
Right. For sure.
And I think that's something that we haven't seen before. I think the cost of entry is really a hang up to bring new people to our sport. So I'm hoping that maybe this interjects a little bit of that. And the end game is to race at Atlanta on Sunday. You know what I mean, for them.
Right. Sure. I agree with you 100%. You know, I don't know. I have so many reservations about what that'll do, and Ron kind of, me and Ron have never spoke about that before. So it was just funny that you and I have talked about that many times, and I've told you my feelings, and he felt exactly the same way. When you're in this side of it, running the racetrack, you just see it. And I hate that I meant to ask Ron about his street stock series, because he's got a lot going on with that, and hopefully we'll have my mini stock tour racing with him several different places over the course of this year. Once we finally do get back racing, I think everybody's plans though. Every promoter, everybody I've talked to, they got some sort of plan in mind as to what they're going to do to run races, whether they're just going to pick up their schedule or they're going to move things around or whatever they're going to do. But all of them are like, well, I'm planning this, but, when we're going to be back racing, so that'll dictate that. I think there's going to be some racetracks when we open back up, they'll race weekly to try to get as many races in. I mean, Hickory's going to race weekly anyways because they race weekly anyways. But,
right.
I think that there's a lot of them that don't race weekly, that race twice a month or whatever, that's going to go, I got to get some races in, whether that's for NASCAR points or if that's for the fact that they make money or that's what they need to do to break even or they just feel like they owe that to the racer or I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with schedules and how much this gap of time that we're down is going to make racetracks that would ordinarily not go head to head. How much of that are they going to go head to head once that happens?
Look, think about, just to add a different spin to it, think about the chassis builder deal. It's going to be even behind the racetrack.
Right. Oh, for sure. I mean, you got to wait for a couple cars to get tore up before y'all got anything to.
That's
I hate to say it that way, but that's just how the business
it's the
works.
truth.
Yeah. I mean, you really, in my opinion, Performance Center, Hedgecock, Torp, all these chassis builders. I mean, y'all really can't really ramp things back up until a racetrack actually opens.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you can sell
That's
a car here or there.
Yeah, but it's not even just one, I don't think.
Right.
Right? Because if you get one race, it's not like you can go back in and just start jamming. I think you're going to have to, like the racetracks are, where you're going to have to probably slowly just come online more and more and more until it just opens back up.
Right. I'm with you. But I think that
Could be a long wait.
it very well could, for sure. I mean, but I think one good thing you got going for you, and I hate to say it this way, but one thing you got going for you, when they do race, they've been pent up for this time. They're going to go like hell. I mean, they're liable to really tear each other up.
The first couple races could be really good.
Good day. That's from a promoter standpoint, that's the good and bad of being if you're one of the first that opens back up, you get all that carnage and all that stigma that comes along with that. Like Ron had his race in January, and all the mini stock guys are like, man, you tear up some shit down here. Oops,
that's it.
But I mean, that's what they say. That they're like, man, I don't know if I want to go back down there, even though that can happen anywhere, at any racetrack, at any point in time. It can happen, and we all know that. Before we get out of here, and we need to get out of here because we've done run way over the time that we intended to spend. But Ron was such a good guest, we wanted to continue on with him for as long as we can. Anything new and exciting in your world, or anything that you've seen that surprised you, or just wanted to talk about?
No, I think we're fortunate. It looks like a lot of those numbers, like we're close to where we should be for a peaking thing, and hopefully we can try to get back on a path to normalcy and everybody's safe and we worry about the other things as they come.
Yeah, I agree totally, and I hope that I hope that people really take the time to you know once this goes away, I don't think it's coming back, and I don't mean the virus. I don't mean that. I mean the shutdown. I don't think that we're going to have to get into that position again. So you might as well cherish the moments that you have with your family. Right now, take advantage of it all you can, because once it's gone, you're going to be back to your normal everyday hustle, and it's going to be totally different. And I know even with that said, a lot of us can't take advantage of that. Like when I go see my mom, like I seen my mom today, and I was standing about 6 or 7 foot away from her, walking in the other directions as I was talking. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to get near her to give, if I have it, I didn't want to give it to her. And I know not everybody's taking that approach, but I think that many are. And many have taken this seriously, and so I know you can't take advantage of it that way. But everybody's kind of stuck at home with their family. And I hate to use the word "stuck," but they're kind of at home with their family, and they should take advantage of that all they can.
I completely agree. I walked out of the house today and got in the van, and I heard some lady walking down the road on her phone. And she was talking about how she could understand how everybody was going to get divorced during this. She hated her husband. And I was wheezing laughing. I got in the car, and I called my wife right away, and I said, man, I got 3-1 that Bill and Judy get divorced in the next little bit.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. That's definitely going to be the divorce rate's going to be pretty high after this, I think. So they better get all the social distancing things out of the way so they can all get in the courthouse there together, so they can get rid of one another. Because it's tough, man. I can say this, and I know I'm in a minority when I say this. I am not really around my wife any more now than I was before. We been together, spending most, being in the same business, even though, sometimes she has other things to do. Sometimes I have other things to do. Being in that same, realm all the time, we're around each other a lot more than most couples. So really hasn't changed. I cuss her out just as much now, and she cusses me out just as much now as she did before. So nothing's really changed there, but I can't imagine the couples who are apart, 8-10 hours a day every day, and now they're with each other that long. The amount of abuse that's probably taking place, is probably pretty bad right now.
And I hope not.
I'm sure it is, and I hate that. I'm sure it
know.
is. But I did see that I drove by Walmart today while I was out. Had to go get some work done on my van, and while I was out, I drove by Walmart, and I'm pretty sure that the stimulus checks have hit a lot of places because, man, there was a lot of TVs flying out the door when I went by there today.
Yeah, I heard from some people that they definitely did.
Yeah, I and it's funny. I think people,
mine didn't. I just want to be clear. Mine didn't, but definitely some did.
Well, yeah, you probably have to wait for the millionaires version. So I'm just saying.
I'm the one that gets nothing.
I'm just saying. No, they probably got one for the millionaires. You'll probably get $1.5 million, for your stimulus. That's about equal to $1,200 to us peasants.
I don't think that's the way it works. But I just hope the money gets to the places that it's needed, and I hope people try to use it for the right things. And it's a bad thing to say as a race car guy, but I hope people do things that definitely benefits their families or puts them in a better position to endure through this.
Well, while I agree with you, I do.
We know it won't happen.
Well, but at
the
same time, what does stimulus mean? It is to stimulate the economy. You can't stimulate the economy by paying your bills. And listen, I'm not advocating for people to go to Walmart and buy a TV and all that, but I'm just saying you cannot stimulate the economy by paying bills. Bottom line.
Well, you maybe not can stimulate it, but you can keep it from imploding.
Well,
I mean, if one guy doesn't pay one and doesn't pay the next and doesn't pay the next, before long we got to Yes.
Listen, when this is all over with, there's gonna be a lot of people with their lights off. I'm gonna go ahead and tell
I
you,
don't disagree.
because
I wish I could say otherwise, but I
they all
don't
think they're
disagree.
getting power for free right now, and that is not the case for sure. So,
Oh,
well,
man.
I think we've used up enough of people's time today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed listening to Ron. I would say we'll be back tomorrow, but as proven by the last episode that we had 3 days ago, when I said we'd be back tomorrow, we probably won't be back tomorrow. But maybe now that I'm saying that we probably won't, we actually will. You never know. I mean, it's just, I think, Tuesday, I think you were busy. I think I was busy. I think, we just kind of were going in different directions. And of course for me, if I leave my house, I got to go 473 miles to, find, sunshine. So, if I leave, I'm probably not coming back in time to do anything. So, but I guess that'll do it for tonight's show, and I appreciate everybody tuning in, and appreciate you being on with us. With me, Roger. I really enjoy. I think people like hearing from the different aspects that we bring. From my media and promotion experience to your being in the race car side of things and building race cars and working on race cars and all that. I think people, from what they tell me, anyways, the three people that listen actually seem to enjoy it. So. As long as Thomas Bean and Boo Carlisle and Tyler Williams are enjoying it, I guess everything's good.
I just want people to drop us a comment on something that you'd like to hear. So maybe there's somebody we're not thinking of, and I'm surprised at how difficult it's been to kind of get guests in this. People just aren't. Well, we know because it's taken us an hour to get ready before this, but
right.
it's more of a production than one would think.
Well, I mean, I just hate that you just opened the door. As soon as Thomas Bean listens to this, he's going to message me and go, "Hey, man, this is what I want to hear."
It doesn't matter. We can still choose who, right? It doesn't have to be.
I don't know how we always end up giving him hell every episode, but,
That's all right.
I think he deserves it.
He lurks in the chat.
That's right. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll be back whenever we're back, and we'll be sure to post it and let you know. Thanks, guys.